can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, I'm going to be talking about Monica Rambeau Photon #2 by Eve L. Ewing, Luca Maresca, and Ivan Fiorelli. The thing to take away from this comic is that Monica Rambeau just did something that DC Comics Flash did famously during the story arc Flashpoint. This is a story arc that has reverberated across the DC Comics universe. We are still feeling the effects of this massive storyline. All the while, Marvel has done similar story arcs here and there that have kind of been similar, but not exactly the same. But this time, Marvel is actually taking a shot at DC Comics Flashpoint by way of Monica Rambeau. In the previous video I did for Monica Rambeau Photon #1, I talked a little bit about how I wondered if she was doing something like this, making her own version of Flashpoint when she flew off into the space-time continuum, that she was flying so fast that maybe she did something that inadvertently changed the time stream. And that's exactly what happened. Monica Rambeau has completely turned time upside down, and what I mean by that is that she's created her own version of DC Comics Flashpoint. Whereas in the case of the Flash, he ran so fast that he broke the time barrier and found himself in a situation where he could save his mother from being killed, Monica just simply flew into the space-time continuum and unknowingly created this effect. Now, the real question is, did she change something but not remember it? Because that was a side effect of DC Comics Flashpoint. When Barry Allen went back into the past and saved his mom, creating this new alternate timeline, Barry didn't really have any memory of it. It wasn't until he was confronted by the Reverse Flash that everything had come together. You know, the famous line that,
"Oh, Barry, that's the beauty of all this. I didn't do any of it. You did."
The real question now is, okay, so Monica Rambeau created her own version of Flashpoint. Well, what exactly is different? Everything is pretty much stuck, as if nothing changed from the Avengers in the 80s. As a matter of fact, it's heavily implied that everything is still happening in the 80s. We know this because the Avengers are still in their Walt Simonson, John Buscema era costumes from back in 1988, when Monica Rambeau was still considered Captain Marvel and was the leader of the Avengers. All of that is back in play. As a matter of fact, she is referred to as the leader of the Avengers, and what's even more telling is that the character of Dr. Druid is still around, if that gives you any idea of when all this very likely takes place. We're very likely in 1987, maybe even as late as 1988, right before Monica Rambeau had lost her powers in Avengers number 293. And of course, Dr. Druid, a guy who was at one point in time a member of the Avengers and a superhero himself, who had been manipulated by a version of Ravonna Renslayer from Earth 6311 that had convinced Dr. Druid that he needed to pull some pretty nefarious shenanigans to protect the Avengers from a terrible future outcome. Hence why Dr. Druid back then had always acted so nefariously, even though he technically wasn't an evil person, but he was definitely doing some evil shenanigans in regards to how he manipulated the Avengers back then. And here he is, alive and well and seemingly still up to his same tricks, trying to dethrone Monica Rambeau as leader of the Avengers so that he can take them over and, quotey fingers, protect them from their future. Another thing that is different about this is that Monica Rambeau's parents are dead. This is a huge deal because in the normal Earth 616 timeline, both of her parents are alive and well. Hell, we literally saw them just in the previous issue. Another thing that has changed as well is that Monica Rambeau is now married. Now, during her tenure as an Avenger, she largely remained single for the most part. I mean, yeah, maybe she had some dates here and there, but she was never in a steady relationship for the most part. And here in this universe, in this new timeline, she's not only in a relationship, but she is married to someone that I think a lot of people probably would not have expected. A lot of people probably would expect, oh, did she marry Blue Marvel in this universe? No, she married Jericho Drum, aka Dr. Voodoo, a guy who, by this particular point, has yet to become any kind of a major staple in the Marvel Comics universe in regards to the Avengers. Jericho Drumm, by this point in his publication history, while yes, he had interacted with the Avengers, but never in the most meaningful of fashions. He was more likely to interact with Avengers on an individual level as opposed to as an entire group level by this point in his publication history. Another thing that is different is the Beyonder, the character who made his first appearance in Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars #1 back in 1984. The Beyonder is an entirely different character now. Well, I mean, technically, they're the same character because, as you probably are taking note of, this character does not look like the Quotey Fingers traditional Beyonder. Usually the Beyonder was a white guy with kind of a little bit of a Jerry curl deal going on and big shoulder pads and, looking like he just fell out of a Captain EO spinoff. But in this case, this version of the Beyonder looks like what I can only presume is either a woman or someone who is non-binary. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I know some people will probably get up in arms about this, but it doesn't really honestly matter because the Beyonder is a being who can warp reality. They can be whatever and whoever they want. But the truth of the matter is, the appearance of the Beyonder in this situation almost shouldn't be surprising considering that Monica, as she says in the previous issue, her ex-boyfriend or whatever, he just recently had a run-in with the Beyonder in Defenders Beyond #1 through 5, if you've been keeping up with that. And in that series, we learned the Beyonder isn't just one dude, it's actually a bunch of people. It's an entire race of individuals that were created by the Celestials. And that kind of seems to be the case here. They're meant to kind of guard and oversee the multiverse. And in this case, the Beyonder, who is for all intents and purposes the same Beyonder from the 1984 Secret Wars event, despite looking incredibly different, is not actively the exact same Beyonder just by virtue of the fact that while Monica Rambeau has very, very terrible memories about her interactions with the Beyonder during the Secret Wars Part 1 and Part 2 events, this Beyonder has no recollection of these moments because in this reality, they never happened. Once again, this is just proof positive as to where all this takes place. Since the original Marvel Superhero Secret Wars event took place in 1984, and many of the events that have been brought up or are referenced in this issue didn't take place until maybe roughly around 1987 or 88, this is a huge deal because that means one of the most formative moments in Marvel Comics history, despite just being a comic meant to sell toys, it never happened. That very likely means that Spider-Man never got the symbiote suit, meaning there's probably no Venom, no Carnage, no Sleeper, no nothing. This also means that Ben Grimm never turned back to normal, never left the Fantastic Four, thus meaning She-Hulk never joined the Fantastic Four. Also, probably don't have the Julia Carpenter version of Spider-Woman who ultimately became Madam Web. It also means that there was very likely no creation of characters like Volcana or Titania. And while this event technically wasn't the most earth-shattering of things back in the day, it was formative for a lot of the Marvel Comics universe. And if a lot of this stuff didn't happen, it begs the question, what happened to all the things that were a direct result of Secret Wars? Now, as we know, time always wants to happen, so even when reality and time is changed, the things that technically happened that were undone could probably still happen just under different circumstances, but we don't really know the full extent of that yet. Because as the Beyonder points out, something that Professor Andre Leclerc told Monica Rambeau when she first gained her powers in Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16 back in 1982 is that the same explosion that turned Monica Rambeau into Captain Marvel had unleashed unstable energy flooding in from another universe, breaking down the wall between worlds, and that has been happening ever since the birth of Monica Rambeau as Captain Marvel, and that those energies have laid dormant for a long time, only until an artifact powerful enough that she has interacted with could undo all of it, and that was the Stone of Hala that she touched in the previous issue. So the Stone of Hala has become a much bigger MacGuffin, not just something that Eve L. Ewing threw in just to wrap up a story arc from a previous comic that she's no longer writing. This is all meant to tie in some major and massive way, which begs the question, who else is Monica Rambeau going to wind up interacting with in the future as far as, or at least in terms of this new alternate timeline. How is she going to undo it? Or is she going to want to undo it? Is she going to learn things about this timeline that might make her want to keep it in place, despite it being at great peril to some of her loved ones? That is a huge question that has to be asked. And right now, the only person who she can really reasonably rely on right now is this Beyonder. The Beyonder is really the only one who seems to have any idea of what's going on, or at least why they've been brought there, and it's because Monica Rambeau's powers, as well as the breaking down of the walls between reality and all this stuff that we just talked about, all of that has drawn the Beyonder closer to Earth, and to try and figure out what their purpose is. What Hinge had tried to warn Monica and Spider-Man about, that Monica was going to destroy the universe, that she was going to break everything, it's all coming true. While Monica initially wants to blame the Beyonder for all of this happening, it's actually more her fault than anything else. And I think not necessarily by the next issue, but I think by at least issue number 4, we're gonna learn exactly what Monica did when she flew into the space-time continuum and unlocked this new reality. But anyways, that's everything I want to talk about with Monica Rambeau Photon number 2. If you want to keep up with my coverage of comics like Monica Rambeau Photon, as well as all the other Marvel and DC comics that I cover on the channel, as well as comics from other imprints, make sure to hit that subscribe button. My goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers in 2023, and the only way I can do that is with the help of you, Earth's mightiest subscribers, as well as Earth's mightiest subscribers of the future. So make sure to tap that notification bell, that way you don't miss anything. Also, on your way out, make sure to Hulk smash that like button and click the share button, because it helps the channel out dramatically. And in the meantime, let me know what you thought about Monica Rambeau Photon number 2. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.